Okay, personal administration. This is our new area that we'll discuss. And just so, what are uh, the areas that will be covered in personal and what will get integrated in personal administration is many areas like personal cost planning, shift planning, capacity planning. Capacity planning is for production planning area, for manufacturing, FICO for cost center integration and payroll calculation, and that we'll see. So we'll see these sections in personal administration, and we'll get an understanding of info types, personal actions, features, and we'll just do that. Okay. So when an employee is added or a master data is created, the assignment of the department, personal development, is integrated. Assignment of department and the reporting lines will be added. The address will be used to integrate payrolls for jurisdictions because of taxation. If the address is different for bigger companies where they have global employees, their payroll jurisdiction for taxation will be different. Okay. Similar goes for tax information. It will be different also, so it will be maintained. So in the master data of employee, these are the areas that will get covered. Family, yeah, family details are needed because if a person is to work in a rotation on offshore areas, then of course the recruitment will depend and weigh on the family details as well. That person's reputation or positioning will also get an influence from the family details. Work schedule, yes, the timing will also be maintained through the work schedules. So these are some of the areas which are maintained in master records. So why do we use master data? Because it defines how an employee will be working and under what conditions from both the sides, from the company or from the factory or from the personal priorities of the employee that we've discussed. And that actually segments and helps in establishing slabs for payroll, for taxation, for development, for training, and so on. And what are personal actions? Actions will be like hiring, training. These are segments or stages. These are the actions that will be performed on the employee, like at the hiring time, of course, there will be an onboarding process. That onboarding process will be called probation for 3 months or 6 months. And then from there, the person will get either permanent or contractual base offer after the completion of probation. So personal actions, yes, we will actually see how it is done. Okay. And in personal actions, for every employee in a department or in a company will have different implications and strategies. The structures, yes, this is the responsibility of the HCM consultant to describe and define elements of the enterprise structure. And the enterprise structure that we have seen, the employee groups, employee subgroups, the personal area, the personal sub areas, okay? And the organizational structure is basically the backbone for any company. So the HCM consultant must know how to organize everything in a place that looks understandable and logical to their uh, clients. So the groupings, basically, this is basically very important. Why do we need sub-area groups, sub-employee groups? We must have the understanding for that. The structures on a personal level, on an enterprise level, as we have seen on enterprise level, personal areas are basically geographical locations. Okay. And on a personal area, the personal groups are basically divided into three segments: active, retiree, early retiree. These are some of the groups, subgroups. Structures that we have seen: company codes, personal area, which are geographical, and then personal sub area like the corporate office and the factory area. These are personal sub areas. The personal structure, yes, in personal structure, it can be a little differentiated where the personal structures can be either organizational, where you define a job which describes a position. Okay. An administrative structure will actually classify how employees are segmented, like the management and the labor class or the executive class. Employee groups, as you've seen, it's divided into active, premature retiree, and retiree. We can have other groups, but broadly, these are some of the groups that we require. Now, employee subgroups. Under active, we will have different classes of positions like permanent, contract, clerical, press, working journalists. These are some of the subgroups that will be working under these. So we can have different types of categories, like permanent will be a category, or an hourly or a salaried will be a category. Okay. So there are ways to actually interpret it. Payroll area. Now, this is basically, again, payroll areas can be different for different employee segments. Like, for example, some people, people from personal sub area from the office will have payroll run on 10th, while at the factory, the payroll is run on 28th. Okay. So payroll areas will also relate to personal sub areas, which is personal sub areas like office and factory. The units that we have already seen, we have already created also, and we have gone through it. The organizational units actually start from the top till the molecular level. Jobs, as we've seen, these describe, and these are the JDs that describe how a person will have to perform in that position. Okay. These are general classifications of positions. Classification means explanations how, or SOPs. So in organizational structures, we have three levels: enterprise structure, which will have company code, personal area. Personal structure will be another part where we have employee group, which is active, and then subgroup. Subgroup will be salaried or hourly or clerical, or any subgroup that will work under active. Then groupings. Now, employee subgroup, as we've seen, salary or contract, or a salaried or hourly base, that is employee subgroup. Personal sub area. Now, personal area is geographical, and personal sub areas will be departments under the personal areas, the geographical areas. Okay. Now, these can be departments, and these can be like office and factory. Those can be groupings as well. Over here, it is showing as departments, but we can have a factory as a personal sub area, and an office has a personal sub area. So personal sub areas. Now, personal sub area factory, it will have its own time management. It will have its own basic pay requirement and info types, and it will have its own calendar and wage types also, because it will be different. But for the office, of course, it will be different. Employee subgroup. Under active, there will be an employee subgroup like salaried or hourly, and they will have their own wage types, their own structure for payroll, and pay scales for the employees, pay scale groups. Okay, and evaluations for that vary. Salaried subgroup. Okay. So what are info types? Info types are basically the features of the units, the master data that we're creating of the organizational structures of the employees. Okay, and info groups basically define and design the entire unit, whether it is a job, whether it is a position or organizational unit or a person. Okay. So info types, for example, for an employee, the info types will be family. Family details are info types. Address details will be info types. Organizational assignment will be info type. So in address, you will have home address, office address, permanent address, um, temporary address, holiday address. Okay. And you will have the control to define the address info type. Okay. Actions will be like hiring, promotion, probation, and sort of that. Bank details will have their own fields like foreign currency field, local currency field, currency to be for the payroll, taxation, and things like that. Okay. So there are 4 primary master data info types. So whenever we are creating master data for employees or any organizational unit, there will be 4 types of master data info types. Actions. Actions again, whether the person is getting hired or promoted or probation, that is action. Action that is being performed on that input type. Okay. Organizational assignment. Organizational assignment again. To what organization does the person belong to? Okay. Personal data. Again, personal data will be like family details, bank details, address, personal data, payroll status. Now, basically, these are info types that we are discussing. Now, info types are basically the heart and soul of HCM. So, actions are info types represented by tetra 0, organizational assignment is tetra 0001, personal data is 0002, payroll status is 0003, and there are many info types, thousands of info types. So info types will be clubbed into info group because as there are thousands, you will only select 2025 for each client, and then that info group will be clubbed to become a personal action. Okay, like details, addresses, and personal details. So in a HR master data, if you're talking about master data, some menus will be, some parts will be static and some will be dynamic. For example, these are info types, as we have seen. We'll also see in once we actually complete this presentation, then I'll show. Info types are basically the features of any master data. Okay, like actions, organization assignment, personal data, and so on. Now the indicators in actions. Now, what is the action over here? The action type is hiring. Okay. And the indicators of that status, like hiring, whether the person is already hired or going through hiring or will be hired in 10 days or facts like that. Okay. So status indicator, for example, in actions. Now, what are actions? Let me just show that. Okay, personal number 0 to 100. Now, these are info types. Okay. These are info types, and it will show. Now, these are the info types that are populated, like addresses. I'll double click. Okay, double click and display. These are info types that have been completed. Okay. So there will be statuses whether the person in action is getting hired or it is active or retiree or withdrawn. Status 2 can be your specific as well. Organizational assignment 01, whether which department does the person belong to and what is the sub area, okay, well, that you'll see. So this is the address info type, address type, permanent address, and we can have many addresses, okay. And we can maintain and configure these fields that we'll see in later chapter. Okay, assignment 01, actions. Let's see actions, display. Now this is hiring, and we can have hiring, mini master, leaving, leave of notice, long-term unpaid leave. These are features, actions that are being performed on this employee. Employment is active, and these are statuses. Okay, customer specific can be statuses can be configured as well. So this is the position this person is uh, occupying, marketing manager, and personal area is again geographical, best way. Employee group is active, and employee subgroup is salary. Okay, as simple as that. Personal data, let's go and see what we have in personal data. Okay, display. Slow, so let's go ahead. Payroll status, we'll also see this. Okay, now this is personal data. Name, last name, first name, additional data, birthday, birthplace, marital status, nationality, and so on. Okay, so we can actually configure this and remove and add more fields to it. Same goes with payroll status also. So there are some info types like which have categories like time constraint, info types, time constraint 2, okay, time constraint 3. Some will have overlaps, some will have no overlaps. So time constraint 2 is that there will be no overlaps, like educational qualification will have no overlaps because one qualification per person at a time is possible. You cannot do masters along with bachelors, right? Time constraint 3, yes, there can be gaps and overlaps. Overlaps can exist because the person might be working on 3 projects. So that is time constraint 3 info type where gaps and overlapping will exist. Okay. So there are many other info types. We will actually see all these in very detail. Okay. At this point, you will be able to describe what are info types. Personal actions basically um, define what the person status is being upgraded to. These are actions like the personal data addresses are getting updated. Those are some actions. Okay. So uh, personal actions, PA40, PA40, 200, enter. We don't have any action types right now maintained for this. Okay. So um, /n, personal management, administration, HR master data, and we can have fast entry PA70, and we can enter a date range, and we can enter all these details through this screen also. Okay. Now, additional info types like 0302 are basically for changing employee subgroup. Now, employee group is what is employee group? Active. Employee subgroup, salary or contractual. So if a person is getting promoted from hourly to salary, then of course we will need actions, that action type reassignment. And the reassignment will actually shift the person from this zone to this zone. And additional actions will also mean there is an addition to the family, and that will be again added to the personal details of the person. Okay. So we'll see how we can actually do this in the system. We'll see that later on. Then we have other info type 0016, 0019. Okay. Contract elements, monitoring of dates. So there are many info types, thousands of info types that we see. Okay. And you can actually understand how we'll see when we actually start the configuration for this area. So what are features? Features basically are objects within personal administration that determine automatic default values. Default values like currency, like um, employee subgroup, employee group, help control system process by querying different company personal or data structure fields to determine a specific value. Okay, so employee groups will be active and these groups will be salaried and hourly. So these will be defaulted. You don't need to re-enter all these details again and again. So personal administration, of course, the integration actually happens at many levels, like event management, organizational management, recruitment, payroll, and so on. Okay. So this was today's lecture. It was a bit theoretical, but we will actually gain pace in the next ones because next ones will be about configuration.